Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am O'Brien McMahon, and this is People Business. In this episode, I am joined by Jeremy Dubow. Jeremy is Prosperity Partners' Chief Executive Officer. He manages the company and is responsible for its strategic direction, growth initiatives, and talent development. He began his career at Arthur Andersen before co-founding Prosperity in 2003. He is a tax expert where he provides sophisticated tax planning and consulting services to technology entrepreneurs and their enterprises, high net worth individuals, and family offices. His areas of expertise include M&A, ultra high net worth tax planning, equity compensation, partnership taxation, and a lot more. He also co-leads Prosperity's mergers and acquisitions practice, advising business owners throughout the sale process. Jeremy routinely speaks on behalf of the Illinois CPA Society and AICPA on a variety of tax technical topics and is actively involved in the Illinois CPAS tax committees. You might be thinking, why am I about to listen to a tax expert talk? But this conversation is much more than that. So Jeremy is the CEO of an accounting firm that has transitioned from a traditional partnership model into more of a standard corporate structure. They have taken on private equity and investment. They are buying, acquiring, and integrating other accounting firms into their business. And they're doing it all with a very human-first approach. And I think that there's a ton that people can learn from this. Business leaders, even more mid-level managers and rising leaders. I think there's a lot in here around how to be purposeful and how we create a people-first environment, how to think about structuring different types of incentives to tell different stories, how to think about what happens when private equity gets involved, because private equity is a reality in countless industries, more and more industries all the time. You were constantly seeing headlines about private equity getting into new areas. And so I really think that what we talk about in this when it comes to an accounting firm with a tax expert is actually analogous and applicable and metaphorical for just about anybody in any business out there. That's my pitch. You can listen and decide for yourself. I hope you enjoy it. I did. Jeremy is a very charismatic leader and definitely is practicing what he's preaching on this podcast. Here is Jeremy Dubow. Jeremy, welcome to the show. We got a little carried away with our pre-conversation and got some energy going, so I'm excited to jump in here and talk a little business with you today. Welcome to People Business.
Well, Brian, thanks for having me. Yeah, if you can't have fun early in the morning on a Friday, I don't know what kind of fun you're going to have all day. So really looking forward to the conversation with you today.
All right, let's jump in. Let's start at the beginning. Can you just lay out for people what is Prosperity and what's going on in your business right now? There's been some transition there. I guess in your own words, can you just lay out what the business is and what you've been through over the last 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, Brian, the short answer is Prosperity is an accounting firm. We do the things that other accounting firms do. We provide tax services, accounting, valuation, litigation support, in those types of services to people that need accounting services. The longer story probably is a bit more interesting. So I started Prosperity, which was originally called NDH, in January of 2003, when I was 26 years old, after leaving Andersen and then Deloitte after Enron blew up Andersen. So I like to think of it as an entrepreneurial story in that I was a standard accountant who decided to do something different at a young age. And at 26 years old, me and a couple of my buddies, colleagues, friends, whatever you want to call it, decided to leave the big firm to go off on our own. And then we spent the next 20 years building an accounting firm, hopefully the right way, where we were focused on hiring the right people, creating opportunity for our employees, becoming experts at what we were doing. In our case, it was primarily tax, but it moved into other aspects of accounting. And then probably the last thing that came was figuring out how to run a business. It turns out that's actually the hardest part about being an entrepreneur. Being an expert in what you do, whether it's tax, accounting, you name your service line, frankly isn't all that hard compared to the psychological aspects of running a business the right way. And then fast forward to April of 2023, which is about 20 years after we started our company. We were pretty early, but we decided to partner up with a company called Unity Partners out of Dallas, which is a private equity firm, and sold a portion of our business to private equity. And since then, it's been about 2.5 years. We've built our business steadily. We've added infrastructure. We've acquired several companies. And our company today looks a lot different than it did 2 years ago, but the foundation and the values still remain the same.
All right. There's a lot to unpack there, both in the past and what's going on right now. I keyed in on two things you just said. So one is we wanted to do it the right way. So you're 26 years old, you and a group of friends, colleagues want to go do this. What did you want to do differently? And when you say do things the right way, like how did you think about changing things compared to what you had experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're at the big firms, which to be clear, are absolutely phenomenal training grounds. I spent approximately 5 years at Arthur Andersen and Deloitte, and those were some of the most important, informative years of my career. I learned how to be a professional. Before today's stage of remote work, you had to be in the office and you had to talk to your colleagues and you had to learn how to be a professional, perhaps dressing right and attending meetings. So during that time, you really learned from the best, and credit to the partners and the managers in those organizations. I really think they were the best and they really knew how to do it the right way, but it was still a big corporation. And there was still a churn on people, even though a little bit less so 20 plus years ago compared to today. You're told on the first day of starting work, look left, look right. None of those people are going to be here in 5 years. And so you quickly realize that this is a cutthroat environment where you need to fit into this square peg. If you're a little bit round and you don't fit, well, there's a clear path for you, and that's not to work for this organization.
It's out the door.
It's out the door. It was definitely an up or out mentality, which, to be clear and to be fair, also, it created some of the best professionals in the industry, and I stand by that. And some of them are still my good friends to this day who have had incredibly successful careers working for the Big Four. But we felt that there were good people who potentially didn't make it because they didn't quite fit the mold. And so we tried to build a business that was based off of the values that we learned at the big firms. First and foremost, you have to be curious. You have to be focused on providing the best client service. You have to be the best at what you do. So the goal is to be experts, but you have to also learn how to build leverage in your organization. One of the problems that accounting firms today have, especially in today's environment of M&A, where all of these businesses all of a sudden realize that there's a ton of value that they never knew was there and is being unlocked as part of private equity. Everyone thinks their accounting firm is incredibly valuable. The problem is if you have a seller who hasn't created succession, hasn't created leverage, hasn't done the right things from a technology standpoint, hasn't built infrastructure, that adds a lot of stress to the values. As much as we didn't understand all of that stuff at age 26, we did understand people. And we understood that we have to take care of our people, give them opportunity. And I think what was really the best approach that we took was we looked at the people who we thought were good people. They made it through our hiring process. They made it through our challenges. And the goal was to find where they would be most successful, rather than say, hey, if this person doesn't fit what I am trying to do exactly, they're gone and I'm going to go find somebody else. It was, let me get to know our team really well, make sure I understand what makes them tick, and find opportunities to be successful. And if you do that, while all focused on client services, or what I like to call running the business the right way, taking care of your clients and taking care of your people, lo and behold, when you look behind you and look at what you've built over 20 years, you realize you've got a great group of clients. You've got a fantastic group of professionals at all different levels in their career. And all of a sudden, you've got a business that has some value Then throw in private equity and you add a little bit of infrastructure technology and do some of the other things that maybe get skipped when you're focused so hard on running fast with running the business. And next thing, you've really got an organization that, in my opinion, stands out. And I think that's what we've done.
So one more question on your original comments, then I want to get into the private equity
Yes.
transition. You mentioned the psychology of running the business. What about the psychology of being now in charge of a business surprised you the most, or was the hardest to adapt to?
Yeah, I sometimes joke around with my peers that on the one hand, people know me as a tax expert, right? And on the other hand, my biggest skill sometimes is to be the chief psychologist in the office. I've got to be the best cheerleader. I have to paint the picture of what the future of our company looks like. Not everybody who's involved in all the day-to-day work and focused on what's happening in the next hour or the next day is looking far enough forward. And my job as the leader of this business is to not just make sure that everything they do has a purpose and a goal, and we're focused on a strategy to meet the goal, but it's also to show them what we're trying to achieve in the future. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between someone who is working between the lines and doing work every day, focused on client service, and someone who's trying to be a visionary and bringing our business from where it is today to where we want it to be tomorrow or a year from now or 3 years or 5 years. And part of my job is to sell this vision. But look, selling it, frankly, isn't good enough. We have to act, and we have a set of goals. We have a strategy to meet those goals, and we have to do all the things every day to ensure that we're making progress toward those goals. And when our team sees that progress and they know they're involved in that decision making and they know what they say matters, they get pumped up too. And that's my job, is get people excited about work. Because you know what? It doesn't have to be boring. It can be a fun and fulfilling job where you become an expert, you have great relationships, and you really like your peers. And if I've done that well, I'm happy with my job.
So they quote, say it's lonely at the top. Being the leader is a lonely position because, to your point, you have to be that cheerleader. But at the same time, like, stuff goes wrong and there are doubts and all that self-talk can creep in. So as the company cheerleader, as the visionary, how do you deal with hardship? How do you deal with negative self-talk? What's your process for getting through that stuff so that you can stay focused on the positive vision and supporting the organization?
Yeah, Brian, that's a really good question. So let me first state that those that know me know I'm a bit of an eternal optimist. So I do think that the outcome is going to be just fine if you do all the right things. But I'm also a realist. And the reality of it is, in this job and in this world, there are difficult moments. You might have invested a ton of resources landing an employee from a competitive firm, and you think you've gone through the process right. It's going to fill a big gap in something that you've done. You've invested several weeks or months, and the employee chooses a different firm or stays with their own firm. And so those are losses that happen. On the M&A side, today in public accounting, the environment is more competitive than it's ever been. In the old days being 3 years ago, if I was interested in acquiring a business, I might be the only one bidding on this business. And so it was a matter of value. Today, that's not the case at all. I'm bidding on a business, and oftentimes there's a process with a banker or a broker, and I'm competing with 9 other businesses. I got news for you, Brian. It's not easy to win when you're competing against 9 other businesses every single time. You could actually lose a whole lot. And we've had to deal with defeat in that way. But what we do is what I always do, taking back to my days as an athlete and competitor, is you go back to the drawing board, you take a look at what went well and what didn't go well, seeking as much feedback as possible. If we lost a bid in an M&A opportunity, I want to understand why we lost. Is it because we didn't have a service line? Is it because we didn't get along well enough with the sellers? We weren't in the right geography. So we try to dissect what didn't go well and then build it up for the next time so that we can take another swing at it. And part of my job these days, unfortunately, is losing a whole lot, probably more than I like to lose, because I don't like to lose at all.
Yeah.
And we do have to lose because there's so many businesses that are private equity backed or even not private equity backed who have a pretty strong M&A plan as part of their growth strategy. And my job is to win those opportunities, and we're going to lose some, but we dissect, we go back, we get better, we go back up to the plate again. And I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is I need to have a short memory.
Yeah.
And I do. I come to the table thinking we're going to win every one of them.
Yeah. All of that resonates with me. I'm been doing what I'm doing for 16 years now, and I'm building my own book of business within our corporate enterprise. And I find that 98% of it is losing, right? It's somebody turning down a cold call or not taking a meeting with you, or you compete on the deal against 5 or 6 others and you don't get it. But the wins, when you get them, if you keep doing the work, are enough that you can actually build something pretty great over time. And so you have to be able to sit in that and sustain it. And I think it takes a lot of focus on what that self-talk is and how you are gaining clarity deal to deal on ways that you need to improve. It's making sure your head's right, and then making sure you're just constantly evolving little by little, just those micro changes, and all of that adds up over time.
But so I agree. I'll add to that point. I also think the best winners are ones that really remember the losses. While you need to have a short memory, you also need to understand what it takes and what it feels like not to be successful.
Yeah.
And anybody, whether it's securing employees, new M&A targets, or obviously prospective clients in our business, you have to compete, you have to care, you have to want to win. And winning is also contagious. Once you get a few, you tend to get a few more. But that's how we think about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. If anyone remembers Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame acceptance speech, he basically just roasted everybody that had ever doubted him or said something. Those losses, those negative comments, they were all seared into his mind, even with all the wins that he had. So that resonates.
No doubt.
So you mentioned a couple times you've taken on private equity investment. So accounting firms historically are partnerships. And so you have a group of partners, you have younger associates working their way up, trying to become partners. To take on private equity investment to sort of restructure as a corporation, that's a big shift within that industry. What were those conversations like? Why did you go that route? Was there disagreement among the group of partners? Just curious sort of how that whole thing shook out, because that decision making maybe isn't automatic.
Yeah, I think you've raised a couple issues separately with your question. I'll try to tackle them all head on. First off, with respect to a standard accounting business, like many consulting firms, it's a partnership. It's one where the partners take all the profits and the money out of the business, and the junior people work really hard to get to that top step to be partners so they can take the profits out of the business. And the measurement of success for a firm like that often is as simple as, did I make $1 more of cash this year than I did last year? Did I take $1 more out of the business? And if you can answer yes to that, you generally walk away saying, hey, we had a good year. And what private equity does is it changes the way you think about what's a good year. Instead of taking money out of the business, the model entirely shifts, where, in so many words, everybody is an employee on a fixed compensation. Yes, there's bonus opportunities and there's other contingent compensation, but it's very different from a partnership model where if you have excess profits, you're distributing them. In a private equity model, the goal is to build up the enterprise value of the business. In English, increase the stock price. If you got a stock price that's a little bit more than it was before, that's actually the better measure of success for your business. And so that way of thinking allows you, in my opinion, to do all of the right things. Obviously, there's lots of people that say, oh, is private equity going to be bad for accounting? And there's definitely a lot of schools of thought on this, as you can imagine. Is it going to be more competitive for people? Is it going to be cutthroat? Is there going to be a focus on only EBITDA, reducing compensation? The reality of it is all of those things are to some extent swirling around, but my job is to increase the enterprise value of the business to improve the result for the stakeholders. So how do I go about doing that? I can't do it by accident. I have to create a better business. I have to create a better experience for my employees and better experience for my clients. If we do those things, generally speaking, the enterprise value goes up. So in my view, after spending several years in it, they are all connected. Increasing our value is tied to running a business, is tied to providing better service to my clients and doing right by my people and creating opportunities. So that's how I think about private equity. But that's the big shift from building a business to taking more profits out of the business. We're investing in rather than taking out. The second part of your question said, how did you get everybody on board? And of course, I have several partners. And no doubt, as we went through this process, there were different viewpoints. But at the end of the day, there were two things that were really consistent amongst all of the partners in my organization. First off, technology and accounting was moving faster than we could keep up with it. If you are taking out rather than investing in, you're not going to stay at the tippy point of the bell curve on making the technological improvements. While I thought we were okay at technology, we were probably making 10% improvements per year. The problem is that the market was going at 100% per year, and you had to take risk. So technology, by doing a private equity deal, it allowed us to take the technological risk to be a better business and to stay at the front of it. Second, I'm sure you've read about no thanks to the Wall Street Journal here, but apparently there's a lot less people in accounting today than there were before. And it's very difficult to hire people. It's a labor constrained environment, as I like to say. And the result of that is it's ultra competitive for people. And we wanted to make sure that we had a firm that was the best place to work for the people that currently work for our organization, created the most opportunity for them, and for our future hires, that this is the place they wanted to be. The old model of go work your tail off for 15 years, make partner, then go work harder for the next 15 years before you get a buyout. Frankly, that just wasn't appealing to the young people we were hiring. And so we wanted to have a better model that was appealing to them to ensure that we could be the best organization with the best people. When you combined people and technology, frankly, it was pretty easy to get on board. And all of us were saying, yeah, we need the firm of the future, not the firm of the past. And that's why we did our deal.
Thank you. And that leads to another question I was going to ask, which is accounting graduates have in their head, oh, this is what the accounting model is. When you're going out and you're recruiting now, what's the pitch and how does it differ? And how are you communicating the value of the model that you've built compared to the grind away to become partner model?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a big part of our pitch. If we're offering a salary to whether it's a junior person or even a more senior person, you need to have some bells and whistles on there that allows someone to see what the future looks like. Back to our vision discussion. No one wants to know just what happens tomorrow. They want to understand the future. And part of our company is we have what we call an employee purpose plan, where every single person in the organization essentially has some form of equity compensation and participates in the upside of the business when there's a liquidity event. And so what it allows me to do is when I'm competing for an employee, I'm going to pay them market compensation, but I'm going to also provide them with equity that, depending on the timing of the turn of our business or the transaction that generates liquidity for all of the stakeholders, including the private equity owner plus the professionals inside the business, there's going to be a payout with their equity. And for the more senior people in the organization, that payout is going to be at favorable tax rates. And so when we're talking to someone, we're going to provide market compensation, bonus, and equity. And we're going to talk about our proposed timeline when there's going to be a liquidity event. Obviously, we don't know with certainty. We also don't know with certainty that we're going to achieve the value that we think we can. but we certainly have a lot of people that have stakes in us being successful, and it gets people excited. They're no longer waiting so many years to have this big payout. They can have payouts over time at regular intervals and potentially at favorable tax rates, said the tax guy. So that's a good thing to communicate to people. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, it works. We've got a strong track record of hiring people. I think, by the way, that's also because of the process that we built with our HR team and our recruiting. We take that part of our business incredibly seriously. But on the other side of it, look, if we don't deliver what we promise, we don't keep people. And at Prosperity, we've had a great run of success with keeping our best people, if not nearly everybody in the organization, because we do what we're going to say we're going to do, and our team believes in the vision, and we're executing on it.
Is it fair to say that, like in a traditional partnership model, if there was a liquidity event, all the partners would get payouts, but the non-partners would not? And so you're basically spreading equity across the business in a way that the traditional partnership model would not.
It is fair. Yeah,
Okay.
it's absolutely fair to say that. In a standard partnership model, employees get paid compensation and partners take the excess out of the business. And so if there's a liquidity event, certainly there might be some willingness to share via bonus some element of some liquidity proceeds, but we've got a formal program in place where everybody knows where they stand. They understand what the potential value of their equity is worth today, what it's worth tomorrow, and what it can be converted into with potentially a new owner of the business. And that gets people excited. Though, O'Brien, I'll admit, since we're 2 years plus into our deal and we haven't had the first liquidity event for our team, I, as the CEO of the business, do have to do a little bit of work to remind and convince my team that this piece of paper that they have, fortunately, it's not just one piece of paper. We do have attorneys, so it ends up being a couple pieces of paper. But that legal document that they have has a lot of value.
Yeah.
And from an industry-wide perspective, as you're seeing some of the second turns of these accounting firms, and most recently, Citrin Cooperman had its second turn, that turn unlocks value for our team. And admittedly, until we have that turn, I understand that some of our people they discount it or they're more hesitant to see the value, but they also believe in what we're doing and know that there's some value there. I just can't wait to show it to them.
Yeah. Having to wait 5 years is better than having to wait 18 years to become a partner.
My math skills are waning as I get a little bit older, but that sounds like good math to me from what I can tell.
Maths. So I love all of that. I think that makes sense to me. And full disclosure for anybody interested, I've actually had John Block on the podcast, who is the CEO of Unity Partners, which owns Prosperity. And so if you want to match this up with the actual private equity parent talking about how they think about people beyond just EBITDA, that was a great conversation with John. Would encourage people to check that out, and vibes very much with what you're saying, Jeremy. And so definitely see the synergy between those two. There's another element to the growth here, which is the acquisition targets, which you've talked about, and bringing other accounting firms into the fold. Acquisitions are difficult. I'll just share, Locked In, where I work, we have grown organically for 50 something years. So we've never really done acquisitions. But what we did was we went from single offices being their own series of Locked into a regionalized series model. The Chicago office, which was one of our biggest offices, and the St. Louis office, which is one of our biggest offices, merged to become the Midwest series. So that's just background. But so we were doing a merger in the same organization, in the same culture. We knew each other, we liked each other, and we were all shocked at how difficult an integration was and how people started to freak out or get nervous and maybe not see the vision. And so we had to go back and recommunicate everything and really bring everybody in the fold. And it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. How do you think about, one, identifying targets that would be easier to integrate, that might already align? And then two, what goes into that alignment so that they are buying into what you're doing and they're feeling good about it and they're coming in as part of the prosperity team from day one?
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
no pulling punches on that question. Look, it's a great question. Before I get into that, just to quickly plug John Block, the CEO of Unity, who did spend some time with you. I just want to say, for those that are listening to both of John's interview and mine, John is the real deal. He practices what he preaches. When he talks about investing in great people and people businesses and sharing the upside with equity compensation, he does it all. And it's hard to, I don't have the experience working for many other private equity firms. Maybe I will in the future, because I know Unity won't hold our business forever. But I have been intimately impressed with the approach that he's taken. What he says is what he does, and they really bring the sort of a value-based, principle-based approach to how they think about their ownership of us. And look, that really matters. Our people see it, my partners see it. And so I just do want to say that what you hear on our podcast with John is actually what you get for years and years. And kudos to him and his team. He's built a absolutely phenomenal team at Unity. And people ask me all the time, come on, tell me what it's really like with Unity.
Come on, it can't be that good. It's
Come
private
on,
equity,
it can't be
right?
good. And look, the answer is the same. We couldn't have been happier with our partnership. They've been all stars all across the board. So
you can tell how thoughtful he's been in setting up the formulas that they use and the frameworks that they use, how passionate he is about those frameworks. Yeah, that definitely comes through.
Yeah, definitely. And on my side, hopefully he's excited and pumped up to have partnered with us. For what it's worth, we were actually the first acquisition in Unity's first fund. So you want to talk about a little bit of unknown uncertainty, the kind of hidden secret in that, which is no longer hidden, is when you're the first acquisition in the first fund, oh man, do you get a lot of attention, which initially seems like that's great. And then you're like, all right, why don't you just go hang out a bit more in Dallas and let us keep running this business the way we've been running it? But today, of course, Unity's first fund is primarily complete. They've got a lot of great portfolio companies in there. Many of the CEOs who I've spent a lot of time with and talked to through some of the Unity events and elsewhere. Again, hats off to John and the team. They've done a great job. All right, on to look, that's my way of delaying what's a challenging question.
That's all
O'Brien.
right. That's all right.
Look, you've asked the question about the challenges of identifying acquisition targets and what integration looks like. A couple of years ago, early on, it was really a new frontier in public accounting, where all of a sudden the old school way of M&A, where you partner up with a business, you put them on your platform, and you offer them better things, better retirement, better service lines, better expertise. And that was how you sold an M&A deal. And that worked. And there was plenty of M&A happening. If you go back through the internet and look at all the M&A in the last 10 years, there was a lot of it. Private equity made a huge change. It changed this selling the platform to now we're buying your business for cash. And when you are paying cash for businesses, and not all cash, it's cash and rollover equity and whatnot. But as soon as there's opportunity for liquidity, all of a sudden there's a whole lot more sellers in the marketplace than you've ever seen before. And that's where we are today. All of a sudden, everyone who has an accounting firm thinks that they've got a ton of value in their firm, or that their business should be valued similarly to other businesses, when of course we know that there's a lot of factors that go into value. But in terms of what we're looking for, I'm going to say a little bit of what everybody else says, but then I'll back off it a little bit. We're all looking for cultural fits. The problem with that, and the reason I don't love that, is I don't even exactly know what that means. Everybody's got their own culture. We believe in a value-based business. We are a people-first organization. We're going to take our people, give them opportunities to ascend throughout the organization, have a long career, hopefully filled with lots of success. We also believe in having fun, and hopefully we have a good time doing what we're doing. The words that I always use are intellectually curious. You got to be curious. If you're not curious about what you're doing, job's boring. So you're going to get that from me. At the same time, of course, we've got a great group of clients that we spent years and years taking care of. So we've got to have a focus on our client service and doing right by them. And if you outline that, O'Brien, every firm is going to say, we believe the same things. Of course we do. We believe in people and culture and clients and all of that. And so you're sometimes trying to read between the lines in terms of what aren't people saying that maybe matters more to you. On the one hand, we're looking for this elusive cultural fit, but the reality is you don't always know until you close, which is always too late. But you do your best.
Do you have any good questions that you use to try to read between the lines?
Yeah, the things we look for in questions I don't like quite as much because the answers are all the same. What I look for is how has the seller built the organization over the last 10, 20, 30 years, depending on how long they've been running the company. Is there succession in the business? Are there people that have stuck around for a lot of years? Have people made a partner? Have they ascended through the organization, and has the seller figured out how to make younger people who started as they matriculated through the company, and have they found ways to turn them into partners? Do they have experts in the office? Do they have some unique aspect of their business? So as a guy who likes curiosity and who likes finding ways to be good, I highly value businesses that have found ways to promote their team throughout their organization, built the right succession, and doesn't just have a business that is all them. It's great to say it's all you, but that's a lifestyle business. That's not a business that's easy to mix in with a broader business. And there's going to be partnership and collaboration and sharing of experts and maybe going to market together. So I am looking for those things, which again are not said, but it's in the data, it's in the stats, and that's what I'm looking for. And then finally, just to answer the last question, yeah, it's hard. I don't know what more to say other than you integrate these businesses, and we believe in a fully integrated model. There's other accounting firms out there that have these decentralized models where they acquire a business and they continue to run on their own, to some extent, their own tech stack, their own experts, their own processes. We take a harder approach. And certainly, I believe in this approach, which is why we do it, but it's harder work. Our goal is within 6 months to have a fully integrated business, finance, HR, maybe time and billing on day one, and then integrate some of the technology within 30 to 45 days. And hopefully within 6 months, integrate all of the processes and tax technology and client accounting services and audit. And look, that's not an easy endeavor because change causes conflict and it's difficult for people to embrace, especially businesses that have been doing and running the company the way they have for so many years, 30, 40 years. But that's what we believe in. We believe that creates a better, stronger organization. And then more importantly, from a cultural perspective, it gives some of these people in this organization who maybe didn't always have the opportunity because there was no vision for what it looked like in the future. And I can share my vision with them and get them excited about what it means to be part of our company.
Yeah. So along those lines, you mentioned the integrations of a lot of the back office stuff. How are you integrating the people into the existing people that you have? You said there, you're having a lot of conversations, you're selling the vision, you're getting them excited. Is there a way that you're integrating those people with the existing people so that everybody feels like a cohesive team?
Yeah, for most of the offices, they're going to continue to work on their clients in their geography. So if you've got someone in Texas, they're going to likely continue working on their Texas clients. But what we do is we integrate them into a broader working group. So they might be focused on, just throw out an example, business tax returns. Great. We're going to put them in a group nationally with all of the other people that are working on business tax returns. So they'll have access to the same staff, our same offshoring team. They'll have the resources for the experts in that group, and they're all focused on the same deadlines with a smaller group of people that allows them to feel like they're part of a smaller team. It's one thing to be part of Prosperity. We want people to get excited about the bigger picture on Prosperity, but I still have to think about the micro side of it, which is, hey, tomorrow I've got a deadline. who are the people I can rely on to help me get to this deadline and through it. And we create smaller teams on a national basis so that they're immediately part of what we think is best in class and they're part of our processes. And that makes a big difference. They're immediately part of the national organization. And we're headquartered in Chicago. If we have an event in Chicago, we might invite that person, fly them out. So we try to do as many things as possible to create this cohesive national organization. But look, O'Brien, it does take some time because not everybody's going to fit into that national mold right away. So for some people in the organization, it's much quicker, especially ones that we hire as prosperity. For ones that have been doing what they've been doing for 20 years, it does take a bit longer to integrate them into the overall culture.
And some people are just going to take longer themselves, right? Some people are not going to be as willing to just put down the old flag and pick up the new one. And so they want to see a little bit of the behavior first before they give trust, whereas other people might give trust first and take your word for it and then wait to see it afterwards. So it's, everybody's going to be a little bit different.
You're right. And to be clear, it's one of the reasons that we close a business. I'm on a plane and I'm out there within the first week to share my vision of the future and what we're trying to achieve. And hopefully a little bit of my optimism rubs off a bit and people get excited about the future.
Yeah. The answer to this may be no, but have you seen any of those organizations do anything to put their old culture to bed, like any kind of celebrations of what they built and then moving on, like almost a funeral for the organization before they step into the new one? And the reason I ask that is there's a book called The Power of Moments. I think this is where I got this from. And it talked about M&A, and it was saying that oftentimes people will hang on, they'll grieve the thing that they're losing when there's a big change. Even if the vision that you're selling is great, they're still going to grieve the loss of the thing that they had before. And so they had seen some organizations almost do a funeral for the entity, and they would celebrate it and they would share stories, and then they would move into what the next evolution was going to be. And they found that when they surveyed people, they felt much better. They were able to process that grief and much more quickly move into the new role. So I haven't heard of many organizations that do that, but I was curious if you've done it or seen anything like that.
So the short answer is no, we didn't do that, but it's cool. And admittedly, I dig that. Let me tell a slightly different version of it. So all of these businesses that we acquire become prosperity. To your point, there is this loss of an identity that they've potentially had for a period of time. And no doubt that's one of the challenges in the integration. They've been on the same email, the same logo, the same name, and that's how people know them. And now they have to tell a new story of who they're with. So what I do for a lot of these businesses is I share our story. And as a reminder, we started our business as NDH. And NDH doesn't have much of a meaning. It's just a couple letters that happen to be the first letters of the initials of the people that form the business. But beyond that, it doesn't tell us anything about our values, about what we believe in, about what our goals are. And so one of the first things that I did after we were acquired by private equity was I put a plan together to say, hey, we have to rebrand this organization so that we have a name that better aligns with our values. And it took a year and a half and a process, and it's not so easy to do, but we rebranded as Prosperity with a new logo, a new clear set of values, new colors, new website. And so I do share that story when I'm talking to our partners, our sellers, our targets, that, hey, I'm not asking you to do anything that I didn't do. I took my name, my initials off the door because I'm thinking about the bigger purpose. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to our team, people first. I'm talking to our clients. We're a big time client service organization. And I'm talking to our future partners, some of the M&A targets. All of those people are looking at prosperity. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. And it's different than when I started. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. So at least there's shared sacrifice.
No, I love that. That's a great point. A couple more questions here as we get into this. You had mentioned offshoring very briefly before. I know we talked about that in our prep call, and you had mentioned that you have some thoughts around doing that. And the just like you want everybody in the United States to be integrated, you had mentioned that you wanted captive offshore teams, so teams that were integrated. Can you just talk for a couple minutes on one, why did you make the decision to offshore? And then how do you integrate them and work with them strategically?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, offshoring is a big part of the future of our business. The three buzzwords that I use pretty frequently to my team that I'm sure they're sick of hearing from me because I like to repeat the same thing. Maybe eventually they'll fully embrace it. But I talk about automation, offshoring, and AI. And frankly, in that order, though AI is slowly, maybe quickly, rising in order in terms of what we can do with some of the AI tools that are out there. But first and foremost, automation's key. We've got a labor constrained environment. We have to find ways to do more with less. The days of keying information into tax software or accounting software, those days are largely gone. And you've got to use the right automation, but automation has to be built into your other processes and the other software. So the businesses that are most embracing automation are going to be the ones that are successful in the future. Secondly, labor is, again, hard to come by and expensive in the United States. And offshoring allows us to use a little bit less expensive labor, as well as a highly motivated team that wants to be successful. So we've got a offshore team in India today that was curated largely by the head of our tax technology. He is someone who came from a large automation business who had an Indian offshore team. And so he knows how to curate a team that already has expertise in our automation tools and our processes. So to some extent, I get pitched on offshoring more so than any other service out there.
Oh,
Every single day I get pitched by someone that wants to sell, hey, I can create an offshore team, or we've got an offshore team. The challenge with that is those teams are not immediately baked into your processes and your technology. So by building one from scratch that was connected with a big part of our organization, that allowed us to hit the ground running on offshoring. And so we've got a captive team that knows our automation tools, that knows our technology, and has some sort of relationship with some of our technology leads in our organization. That's a huge advantage compared to my peers. And then secondly, we treat this team like they're part of our team in onshore. They are on our email. They have the same Teams tag, so we can instant message them or chat with them. They are part of our trainings. They attend all of our monthly trainings for technology. We spend a lot of time with them. We're on a first name basis with them. So just to be clear, just because they're in India, it's no different than work we're doing for an employee that is no longer located in one of our offices, a remote employee. We are focused on making sure that they're the best version of themselves. They believe in our organization. They believe in their company. Obviously, we're going to give them swag and all that stuff, but it goes a lot more than just getting a hat. We want them to see the vision of our company, share in our values, participate in our training, have direct contact and communication with all of our people so that they're peers, not just this outsourced group. And anything else, if you believe in a people first organization and you treat people well and give them opportunities to be promoted and succeed, people want to work hard. And that's the approach we take.
so that leads me to my last question. And I used to ask this question at the end of every interview, and I stopped for a while, but I think it's very appropriate here. You founded a business, you were in a partnership, you made the decision to switch to private equity investment, you've offshored. What in your mind is the purpose of business?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? From a private equity perspective, the purpose is to benefit your stakeholders. I believe in a bit of a bigger approach than that. I think John Block, again, the lead at Unity, would say the same thing. Our purpose as a business is to take care of several different stakeholders. Yes, it is to make sure we generate a return for our investors. But I also believe heavily in my view that we are a people-first organization, and the purpose of business is also to create opportunity and to allow for success of your people. And if you don't have a people focus with your organization and you're strictly focused on generating a return for your investors, I think an element of it is lost. And again, I put my money where my mouth is, and as does Unity. We've got an employee purpose plan where our people share in, for what it's worth, 15%. This was a number that Unity supported on day one. So we share in 15% of our upside of our business with all our people. So in terms of what's the purpose of business, first and foremost, you got to have fun working. You got to enjoy what you're doing. Secondly, you got to believe in taking care of the people that are going to take care of you and creating opportunity for them. That's a big part of my job today, is creating opportunity, creating a place where people want to work. And at the end of the day, we still are a client-focused organization. We want to do right by them. And they're not just the client. The people that we work with, they're our friends. They are people that we've gotten to know. We attend family events and birthday parties and weddings. And so in order to be successful, you got to enjoy what you do. You got to be focused on providing opportunity, and you got to have an ecosystem that benefits your clients, your people, and your stakeholders. That's my answer.
I love it. One of the reasons I wanted to have Jeremy on is, even though it's an accounting firm and you might not be in accounting, private equity is now everywhere. There are different ways of thinking about business. There are different technologies. There's AI. There's all these different things that you could do. I think the human element is still important in every business. And so hearing a case study like yours, I think applies across industries as well. Jeremy, thank you for coming on the show today, sharing what you've done, how you're thinking about it, where you're going, and just wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, O'Brien. Appreciate you having me.
Hey folks, one last thing before you go. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to hit subscribe so you can stay up to date with future guests. That's it. Thanks for coming. Go make the most of your business and the people in it.